Hey Chris, hey guys, it's LKG and you're watching the Old Ass Retro Gamer.
Hey everybody, Chris the Old Ass Retro Gamer here, back for another live stream video game collection 2022 NES Part 4. Yeah, oh god, these lamps of mine, they're going to drive me absolutely nuts. 1 second. Let me attempt to fix it. Nope, that's not what I want. That's what I want. That doesn't do anything. Ah! That's more... I guess that's the way it's going to have to be. That makes me look blue. That makes me look purple. That's pink. Lavender. There we go. Yellow is the way to go, I guess. Well, all right. Now that you can actually see me and I don't look like a tomato, like I said, welcome to the fourth part of the live streams Video Game Collections 2022. Yeah, this is the fourth of 4 parts of my NES collection. You can see where they used to be right there. So many NES games. It takes 4 streams to talk about them. So let's just get right into it. But also I want to say today it's not just the games. I'm actually going to talk about other things after the stream, or after I finish talking about all the games that I own. Extra stuff, extra stuff. Stuff that I should have talked about earlier, but I haven't. Let me get the comments going. So let's start off. Last time, the last game that I talked about was Star Trek 5, The Final Frontier reproduction that I have. Not a good game, but we're going to continue on with the Star Trek stuff. And we have here Star Trek 25th Anniversary. I did own this back in the day. I think I got it for my birthday or something because huge Star Trek fan, absolutely. Had to have this when I was a kid. And the thing is, it's multiple Star Trek episodes strung together to make an entire game out of it. I think it's... oh, God, what is it? There's the one where Kirk and Spock are playing gangsters. There's one where like the whole thing is your god is a lie kind of thing. I can't remember what they were. There's one with the killer plants. I think Balance of Terror is part of it also. It's like a top-down adventure game, and it's actually very complicated. I remember back in the day, I absolutely needed an issue of Nintendo Power just to get anywhere in this. It kind of stank. But because I'm a huge Star Trek fan, I also recognize that it is a bunch of these old original series episodes strung together to make a game. Move this a little bit. And it was really cool that I was playing interactive episodes, so I was thrilled about it. Although I will say, the Game Boy version of this is the better one. We'll talk about that when we get there. Okay, so that needs to go that way. All right, next up is another Trek game. Don't recommend this one. It is Star Trek The Next Generation. I love Star Trek The Next Generation. I actually prefer it to the original series. I think I just like the characters more because they spent more time defining them compared to the original series, where it was just always about Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. Every once in a while, you might get an episode about one of the secondary characters. Here, all the characters got developed equally, I think. But the thing about this is it's not like a real narrative-style game. It is a bunch of mini-games. You want to go into orbit of a planet, fly through a bunch of rings. You want to beam some people up from a planet. It's like playing whack-a-mole. It's just, and there's like you're looking at the view screen when you're doing spaceship battles, and it's just not that fun, I don't think. It's got new missions. I don't care. I bought this specifically so I could talk about it in an episode that I did, recorded one that I did a long time ago with Trek Yards, which is a Star Trek YouTube channel. Captain Foley and Commander Cockings were going to be my guests on a live stream. We're going to talk about our favorite Star Trek games. And I had always heard about this one, but I had never played it. So I specifically bought a copy of it so I could play it, hoping that it would be one of the good ones that I was going to talk about. And it ended up being the worst one that I talked about. Like we had our three favorites and then the poop. And this was my poop. I was not a fan of this at all. And this got ported everywhere. It's on handheld systems, and I don't recommend it. But now we're moving on to the Star Wars. So we have the American version of Star Wars. I already talked about the Japanese version of Star Wars, which Namco released. This is the one from Lucasfilm Games, released by JVC. It's better, I think, than I used to think that the Japanese one was better. Now I disagree. I think this one is actually better. Doesn't follow the movie very much either. I mean, there's definitely scenes from the movie in here. It's just like a lot of liberties have been taken. Like, when were you running around in caves as Luke fighting all these slugs and things? Never. But, you have to have areas to play through to make the game of a significant length. So I understand that you need to embellish certain things and possibly make some things up just to have things to do. But like the land speeder stuff and then going through all those caves, it's kind of bullshit. But when it comes to the outer space battles where you're like in the Millennium Falcon up here, you can see it in the back, taking on the TIE fighters, and when you're in the X-Wing at the end, and you can actually switch between characters. You can play as Luke, Leia, Han. I don't think you can play as Chewie in this one. I think it's just Luke, Leia, and Han. It's okay. The music is okay. But it got a port to, I did talk about it when I was doing the Sega Master System games. There is a port of this to the Master System. And the music is actually better in that one than in this, which is strange. But it's okay. But we had this when I was a kid. Everyone I knew had a copy of this when I was a kid. It was like the game to have until The Empire Strikes Back came out. So because Star Wars was so hard, I mean, Star Wars was a very difficult game. Because that was so hard, I kind of said, when it comes to this Empire Strikes Back game, I want to rent it first. Just to see if it's manageable. And I rented it, and I could not get past the first section. The first section is you're on Hoth. You're Luke riding around on the back of a Tauntaun, and the controls suck. And like when you jump, you do like this weird flip and you move real fast. It is like, I don't like the controls. I don't like The combat, I don't like the hitboxes everybody has. The whole thing, you're like a whole first stage and you're on ice constantly, and that sucks. And it's super hard. I never got to any of the scenes where you're like in the snow speeder, like you can see taking on the AT-ATs or AT-ATs or anything past Hoth, because it is insanely difficult and not fun. And all the Hoth stuff is like a maze that I did not want to memorize, because hell no. So I did not have fun with this. So I said, you know what? I'm never buying that one. But as an adult, getting back into collecting, one of the things I said was, got to get all the Star Wars games. You're a Star Wars fan, you're a Star Trek fan, got to get all the Star Trek and Star Wars games. So I found this at the Midwest Gaming Classic in 2018 for a decent price, and I was like, I'll get it because I kind of have to for collection reasons. Still don't like it, though. Still do not like it at all. Iced tea. Next up, we got a shooter called Starship Hector. Picked this up off of eBay, I do believe. It was either, I don't think I got this from my local store back then. But it's a shmup, and I think it's both. I've never actually, honestly, I think I played this once to see if it worked when I got home, and I never played it any further. On the back, it looks like a vertically and horizontally scrolling shmup. But the reason I wanted it was Hudson Soft. Hudson Soft is like one of my go-to companies when it comes to the NES. It was back when I was a kid. If I saw that a Hudson Soft game was out there and it was affordable for me, because I was always saving my lunch money to buy clearance games back when I was a kid, I usually was pretty happy with the games I was getting from them. So when I saw this, I think I did get this off of eBay. When I saw this on eBay and it was like $15 or something like that, because I did not pay. I remember for the longest time I was getting nothing but decent Nintendo games off of eBay for like dirt cheap. So I want to say I didn't pay more than $20 for anything for a long time. And I remember this was in that group of games. So yeah, although it does look very anime-esque, maybe this is based on an anime. I don't know, but we shall see. I really need to go through my collection and start playing all these games that I have never played at any length. But then there's Star Tropics, which is one of my all-time favorite NES games, like bar none. I put this on my favorite NES game list for my top 10 NES game video that I did for Captain Algebra, and I absolutely love it. My friend Gary, who I've talked about plenty of times in this Nintendo stream, trust me, when you get past Nintendo and maybe just a little bit of Super Nintendo, you're not going to hear his name anymore, because it was during the NES days that I was hanging out with him all the time. But it's an adventure game that is a little bit Legend of Zelda and a little bit Dragon Warrior. So you play as this kid who's, his dad has gone missing on this weird island. And the kid goes there to investigate to find what happened to his dad. And when you're on the island itself, when you're like running around talking to people, it's like playing a Final Fantasy or a Dragon Warrior type game where you're in the overworld, and it looks just like one of those. It's very comparable. But once you go into like a dungeon or something to do like some action-y stuff, it turns into like the camera zooms in, and now it's like a Legend of Zelda style game. The sprites are pretty decently big, but you have this hopping mechanic where there's blocks all over the place, and you need to be hopping on these blocks to possibly unlock a door, maybe unlock a weapon, whatever. But there's like secrets you need to find all these blocks. You need to hop from one to another. Your main weapon is a yo-yo. You can eventually upgrade it. It's not just a yo-yo all the time. But the game is super fun, charming. I think super charming. Like, I watched my buddy Gary play through this in one sitting. And usually when he would do that, I would really not have an immediate interest to go out and buy a copy of my own. But like once I got my own Nintendo, this was one of those games I said, I don't care if I've already seen it played through to the end. I need a copy of that game in my life. And I ran out and got a copy. And the cool thing is I pieced this one together. So back in the day, I did have my own copy, like I said. And I did keep a part of it after I sold it. I think I just totally forgot to hand it in when I sold it, because I sold all my Nintendo games to Funkoland when the Super Nintendo came out. But yeah, I bought this game off of eBay, pretty cheap, and it came with the manual and everything. But the thing was, there is something you really need to play this game. It's like the there's like a clue you need, and it comes in the form of this letter that came with the game initially. And it's a letter from... Oh, you're not looking for your dad. You're looking for your uncle. Uncle Steve. I had an Uncle Steve. So you find in the game, there's a part where it's like, oh, have you found that letter? Did you get it wet? And the thing is, you're supposed to dunk the bottom half of this letter in water, and it reveals like a secret message, and it's a clue to what you need to do in the game. Well, like I said, I had sold all of my NES games to FuncoLand back in the day, and I never sold this letter. So when I got back into collecting, one of the first games I went after was my own copy of Star Tropics, and it didn't come with a letter. But I remembered, I was like, didn't I find that? I think I came across it at one point when I was like cleaning out like a tote or something, and I was like, I know I still have it around here somewhere. And sure enough, I went looking through my stuff, and I found the letter, and I was like, sweet. I have to spend, I don't know how much money trying to get that back. I still have my original copy back in the day, which is awesome. But Star Tropics, one of my all-time favorite NES games. Absolutely love it. Still need to play the sequel, though. Next up, we have one of the banes of my existence when I was a kid, and that is Street Fighter 2010, The Final Fight. So, like, Street Fighter was starting to become a thing in the arcades. And I think Capcom knew that they were not going to be able to port even the original Street Fighter game to the NES. It just was not going to happen. Not enough buttons on the controller, that kind of thing. So what we got instead was this. And what it is kind of like a beat-em-up platformer, but it's almost like a boss rush also. You play as Ken. I don't think you're playing as the Ken from Street Fighter, but a Ken who wears like this big cyborg suit, and he can shoot fireballs from his fists when he like punches, and he can kick too, and I think fireballs come out when you kick. And basically just going from like stage to stage looking for the boss to fight, and you just fight the boss and beat it, and it's hard as balls. Like you can climb up walls and ceilings and all this kind of stuff, and there's all these tricks you can do, but it doesn't actually control all that well, and it's not all that fun. I remember back in the day when I was a kid, you bought a game, you were stuck with it for a while unless somebody was able to, or someone was willing to trade with you or something like that. You know, FuncoLand wasn't exactly a thing back then, or at least I couldn't get to a FuncoLand as often as I would have liked because I didn't really have a car because I was a kid. But this game used to just piss me off, and I remember one weekend or whatever it was, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to beat this goddamn game. And I got real close. I got to the final boss, and it just whooped my ass. And I said, I'm done. I am never playing this game again. But I went out with Captain Algebra when he came to visit last summer, I think it was. And we went to my local retro store, and they had this in the case, and it was not expensive. I want to say it was probably 30 or 40 bucks. I was like, all right, fine. Nostalgia of hatred, but I needed to get it back in the collection for reasons. So I don't remember if it was the first or second NES stream. I was talking about one of the Capcom games I have in my collection, and I was like, Capcom could really do no wrong to me at when I was a kid, except when it came to one game that I just could not stand that they put out, and that is Strider. I do not like this port of Strider. Strider, the arcade game, got ported very well to the Genesis, but for some reason, I guess because same thing that happens with Street Fighter, they could not port it the way they wanted to on the NES. It just wasn't going to happen. So they had to come up with this like weird hybrid type thing where it's got elements of the game. I mean, you play as Hiryu, you've got your sword, but this is more like a platformer. Well, the other one is a platformer beat 'em up, but this one is just more reliant on platforming, and your character is really small, and it's just not that fun. I got this from my buddy Felix the Brett on the retro game. What is it? The Retro Nerdatorium on Facebook. It's his personal group. And it's like, I was playing it when I remember kind of sort of liking it when I was a kid, but when I played this after I bought it from Felix, I was like, no. this sucks. And it's kind of got I know a lot of people like it. I'm not one of them. I just cannot get into it now. I absolutely hate it. Not this one. This is a Summer Carnival 92 Rekka. Okay, so this is a reproduction I got from Shantendo64. I've talked about him in this series of streams a lot also. I get repros from him all the time. You might see a couple more later on. This is a vertically scrolling shmup from Japan, and I do believe you're only able to get this during like this one Summer Carnival or something like that. It was like available for sale there. So there aren't a whole lot of copies of it out there. Something like that. I read something to that effect. Don't quote me on it. I can't be absolutely positive. But it was like limited quantities available. But the thing is, this game is one of those cartridges that had that special sound chip in it like they used in Castlevania 3 in Japan, because the music in this game is absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love it. It is so good. It actually sounds like real music at times, like not, chip tunes. But the game itself is kind of like playing like an Alesta type of game, and it's really, really fun. But man, is it tough! It is really tough, but it's not so tough where I want to put it down and like rage quit. It's tough enough but it's tough, but not enough that I want to put it down and stop playing it. I usually keep wanting to play on. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I had to have a copy of it. I had downloaded this on my 3DS, and I was playing the crap out of it there. Usually when I was taking a poop. But when I saw that Shantendo was selling a copy of it on his Instagram page, I was like, I need that right now. I do apologize. I'm probably going to be slurring my words and rambling a lot. I have not had anything to eat today. It did not happen. Work did not allow me to take a break. So this is the first thing I've really drank that had any calories in it today. So I'm like going on fumes. I am tired as hell. I'm exhausted, but the show must go on. Classic, absolute classic. Super C. I think this came out not too long after we got our NES. And Contra, the original, this is part 2 of Contra. The original Contra was one of the games we got with our NES that Christmas in 89, I think it was. And we got this not too long after, and I absolutely love this. I actually like this more than the first one. Everything about it has been like made just a little bit better. So in the original game, you had the side-scrolling, horizontally and sometimes vertically scrolling levels, but it was all side view. And then you had the ones where you're inside a base and you're moving into the screen. The into the screen stuff is gone. Now you have your standard side-scrolling levels, and now you also have vertically scrolling ones where you're looking at the backs of your characters as they're walking up, kind of like Akari Warriors. Everything about it is so much better. The graphics are nicer. The play control is tighter. The music is absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love it. And not an impossible game to beat. The original Contra is not impossible either. You just got to know what you're doing. Same thing here, but everything about this one is just a little bit better than the original. Absolutely love it. Yeah. I'm blanking. Next up, we have Super Dodgeball. Picked this up at the Midwest Gaming Classic this year. Two sellers had a copy of it. Their tables are right across from each other. And I went over to one. They had a copy of this, and I'm like, oh, I've been wanting to get a copy of my own of that for the longest time, but it's usually too pricey. Even back when I was a kid, like Funkoland was always selling this for a lot of money. For some reason, this was like COVID prices back in like the late 80s, early 90s. For some reason, this game was really highly sought after. I don't know why. I remember me and my friends would always talk about, like, what the hell's up with Super Dodgeball at the Funkolands? I don't understand why the prices, like, they're asking so much for it. It doesn't make sense. But anyway, yeah, one guy was selling it at one table, and I looked, and I think it was like $45 or something. No manual. I was like, went across, like, on the other side of the aisle, and there was a guy selling this for the exact same price with the manual. So I was like, that's the one I'll buy. But it's exactly what you think it is. It's Dodgeball. It's done in the Kunio-kun graphics. I think this is actually part of the Kunio-kun series. and it's super fun. I remember I played this with some friends back in the day. Absolutely loved it. You here? Oh man, you missed it, man. I am like out of it today. I've had nothing to eat today. Like I said, this glass of iced tea, it's got sugar in it. It's the only thing with calories I think I've had today. So the rambling is going to happen the entire night. But this game is super fun. I remember I loved it back in the day. I love it now. I have plenty of games that mimic this game's MO, and they're fun too because this set a precedent. I absolutely love Super Dodgeball. I think we need to get a modern remake of that. There's one on the PlayStation 1. I'll talk about that when I get to that console. But now we got the classics. We got Super Mario Bros. Yeah. So, first time I ever played this was in a bowling alley. Eat something awesome. It's probably going to be a char siu bun or something like that I got in the freezer when I'm done with the stream tonight. Yeah, so the bowling alley that my mother was on a league at had like a tiny little arcade in it for like the kids and all that. And every once in a while when like I was off from school, me and my brother were off from school, and she had that was like a bowling day. I think it was on Tuesdays. We go to the bowling alley with her, and like they had like a Play Choice. It wasn't like a Play Choice 10. It was more like a Play Choice 5 or a Play Choice 3 or something. There was like 3 games on it, if I remember correctly. Yes, it was like Duck Hunt. It was Mario Brothers, Hogan's Alley, and maybe Duck Hunt or something. I can't remember what it was, but there was like 3 games on it. And Mario Brothers was the one that always was being played. And like kids from school would come in and like beat it right in front of me in the arcade. And I absolutely loved it. I was like, this game is so freaking awesome. I've never played anything like it. This is so much better than the Atari. And then it ended up being the pack-in game for the NES. So everyone has a copy of this. Everyone who is a video gamer, is a collector, obviously has a copy of this because this came with every single Nintendo in various forms with other games built into the cartridge. There's the Mario Brothers Duck Hunt. There's the Mario Brothers Duck Hunt Track Meet or whatever it is. I didn't want any of those. To get a copy of Mario Brothers in the box, this is when like I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out. And that was overseas. We didn't get that over here. At one point, Nintendo released this separately, and it's not easy to get one of these. It's the same situation going on with Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo, because that was the packing game with the SNES. I think really late in the life of the console, they released Super Mario World on its own in its own box, and I still need to get a copy of that, but I don't want to pay $350 for Super Mario World. You know what I'm saying? But absolutely classic game. Not my favorite in the series, though. Not many people had the single. That was like the OG, though, wasn't it? I think it came with like Mario Brothers and Gyromite or something back in the day, or something. I don't remember. Like I said, I didn't get a Nintendo until '98, and when we got it, it was just Mario Brothers in it. But my favorite in the series is Super Mario Brothers 2. So this is actually a hack of Doki Doki Panic on the Famicom Disk System. The original Super Mario Brothers 2 I talked about when I was talking about my Famicom Disk System games. The original Mario 2 was, a Famicom Disk System game. It was exactly like God, I got the hiccups all of a sudden. It was exactly like the original Super Mario Brothers game. A lot harder. There were now mushrooms that would de-evolve you if you were to touch like this purple mushroom. If you were the big Mario, it would shrink you back down to the small Mario, and if you were the small Mario, it would kill you. And it was deemed way too hard for us puny Americans. You know, we are a bunch of wusses. We can't handle some difficulty. Have you ever played Nintendo, bro? Apparently Nintendo has not played Nintendo. So what they ended up doing was taking Doki Doki Panic and hacking it and turning it into this. It had completely different rules from the original Super Mario Brothers. You know, the original Super Mario Brothers is all about jumping up and punching things with your fist to get power-ups and all that, and then you jump on things' heads to kill them. Not in this. You can jump on things' heads, but you end up riding them. You can pick them up and throw them, though. Everything about this is about grabbing things and picking them up and throwing them. Like there's plants on the ground you can pick up and use as weapons and toss them. You find these potions when you're pulling up the plants that opens up like a warp zone to like I think it's called like the sub zone or something, if I remember correctly. And it's like a reversed version of the stage, and you can find your mushroom in there that will give you an extra health, because you start off with like 3 health. You can take 3 hits, and you can extend that by finding mushrooms. And also you find coins in the subzone. And the game is completely different from any other Mario game that's out there at the time. I absolutely loved everything about it. I loved all the new characters. The new graphics style was really cool. Everything was super colorful. All the different things you needed to do, like the things you needed to ride. There was some puzzle-y type things like, how do I get across this chasm? Ride that flying thing. Try that out. You had 4 different characters to choose from. Each of them had their own attributes that made them easier to use in some stages and harder to use in others. My go-to was always Toad. I loved using Toad. He had the fastest pull speed, and since pulling is the big mechanic in the game, that made sense to me to be the guy that pulls things up the fastest. I could never get into Luigi because of his stupid little spinning leg jumping thing. It always stressed me out. Peach can float when she jumps for a little while. Mario's like the best all-around guy, but Toad was my bro. Toad was my guy. And I love the new characters that they introduced in this, like Birdo and Shy Guy and all that kind of stuff. I love it. Wart was a good villain. And then the big twist at the end is to make it so this isn't officially part of canon. The whole game is a dream. Everyone I know was pissed off about that when you find out. I was like, oh, so what? Like, nothing I did in this game actually matters. It was all in Mario's head. No, come on, get over it. I love that fact. I thought it was really clever because when it came to Super Mario Brothers 3, they went right back to the original mechanics where it's all about jumping up and punching blocks and stuff like that. But this time, they added in some new power-ups that let you fly and that kind of stuff. The music in this game is super impressive. There's a lot of really cool samples in it. The graphics are improved over the original. I would say they're on par with Part 2. But there's now like an overworld, and you can go to stages at your whim, whenever you want to. As long as it's unlocked and you can get to it, you can go there. You can actually go back and redo stages and stuff like that. It's really, really fun. And this was like the game. If you had a Nintendo and you did not have Mario Brothers 3 in your collection, I knew some people who were like called losers in school for not having a copy of this. And I was one of them because I remember I had like everyone would be like you don't have Mario Brothers 3? Who the fucking poor kid? It's like, what? I remember I got called names because of it at one point, and then we finally got our own copy of it, and it was hard to find at one point. But don't forget, there's also that movie, The Wizard, that was made specifically to advertise this game to people, to introduce it to the world, to say it's coming, hype machine begin. I think it's great. I don't think it's the best one. I know a lot of people consider that to be like the pinnacle of the Mario NES series, but to me, not so much. I still prefer 2 because of all the different characters and play styles and all that kind of stuff. This is one of the reproductions I got from Time Walk Games. I talked about them a long time ago. Maybe the first. What was it? The Goonies? Might have been the first stream. Yeah, I think it was. No, it was the second stream, part 2 of this series. I'd gotten a copy of the Goonies reproduction from Japan from Time Walk Games, and like I had made this plan. Like Time Walk Games was like the place to go for reproductions. Everything they did was super high quality. You got manuals, maps, really cool cartridges with a great label, and a box that looked legit. They were a little pricey, but I had made this plan where I was like, every paycheck I was going to buy a game from Time Walk just because I wanted all of the things on their site. Everything that was there looked awesome. And I bought Goonies, and I got it, and I was like, yes, this is awesome. And then I bought 2 games from them, and then, like, seriously, like, a day after I bought that stuff, they shut down. They were going to complete all the orders that they already had in hand, and then they were not going to process anymore. Apparently, it was, like, 3 guys that worked out of, like, the store. They all worked at a video game store, and they were always staying after hours to make all these reproductions and stuff, and they were never getting any time to see their families. So they put the kibosh on Time Walk Games. But one of the last games I got from them was this and a Super Nintendo game. The one I got was Sweet Home. So I wanted to get this because it's a horror game. There aren't many horror games on the NES. And the other reason is it turned out to be a licensed game. This is based on a relatively craptastic Japanese horror movie, which I streamed on Discord. I think Dan B was there in the chat. I think Radical Reggie was there in the chat watching it along with us. It was pretty fun. I mean, it was fun to chat with people while we were watching it. The movie is pretty crappy. But also, this is by Capcom. This turned out to be like the precursor to Resident Evil. So what it is an RPG where you play as a group of people that you can swap in and out of your party as you go. And you're like trapped inside this house with a bunch of evil ghosts. And when you get into a fight, it's like your standard RPG. The character that you're fighting is like right in the middle of the screen, and you have your little command boxes with all the things you can do in it. And it's really fun. The music, I think, is a little annoying at times, but it's kind of graphic for an NES game, which is probably one of the other reasons why it was never released over here, because we can't handle scary stuff over in America. Oh my God, we're so sensitive. But it's super fun. Nintendo swears by this game. He says it's one of the greatest RPGs he's ever played. But is it Sweet Home the one where there's like bodies hanging from the wall? I might be. I haven't played this very much. I played it when it first showed up to make sure that it worked. So if there was a problem, I can contact Time Walk Games, and it worked perfectly fine. But the cool thing is, I complained about something that Time Walk does when I was talking about the Goonies repo that I got from them. The box is fantastic. A little thicker than your standard NES box. But like I said, Time Walk usually would give you a lot of cool stuff along with your game. So you get like a full color manual, which looks legit as all hell. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This just fell out. A serious protection. I think because they shipped it to me in a protector. This is the company they got the protection from. But like I said, sometimes they'll even give you extras. And what you end up getting with it is a map of all the different screens and how they connect to each other. So it's kind of like a cheat guide. So I need to sit down and play this game at some point. Like I said, Nintendo swears by it. It's like one of the greatest NES games there never was, because we didn't get it over here. And I need to experience it for myself because I love horror. Absolutely love horror. And this is like right up my alley. I hear it's got like a learning curve kind of situation too. But I'll find out when I get around to actually sitting down and playing it. Like I said, I tried it out to make sure that the cart worked. But the thing I complain about when it comes to Time Walk games is what they do to the cartridges that they use. So it is a cool map. I like the way they did it. It's a little tiny thing. But they were using donor carts. They weren't buying like empty shells like a lot of places that make reproductions do. No problem, dude. They were not buying shells for the cartridge. They were taking cartridges that were already in circulation and recycling them by like taking the guts out of the game and then putting their stuff inside of it, which I don't think is cool. You're just taking copies of games out of circulation that people might want. So they would take an existing game, like a sports game or Mario Brothers or Duck Hunt or something, and they would spray paint the cart. So they spray painted this like this deep red, like crimson color to look like blood. And the thing is, you would open up the box. When these first showed up, I opened up the box, and all I could smell was spray paint. And it still kind of has a faint odor of spray paint. Trust me, it's dissipated a lot over the years. Goonies still has the strong scent of it. And all they did was spray paint that one a darker color of gray compared to what the cartridge was originally, which makes no sense to me at all. I can understand the red, and I do think, if I remember correctly, I can't talk. I'm so fucking hungry. If I remember correctly, certain cartridges, if you asked Time Walk Games, I think there might have been a small upcharge, you would get a label on your cart that was holographic. It had like that, you could turn it and it would like turn colors. It was like metallic. And they would spray paint your cartridge to look like it's been splattered with blood instead of just being red. But since I got this like at the tail end of their existence, they just spray painted it red and called it a day. I'm not complaining. It's still pretty cool. Here's another game that could use the 4 score or the satellite, and that is Swords and Serpents. This is a dungeon crawly RPG where it's one of the ones where you're moving into the screen, kind of like Eye of the Beholder, some of the old text or some of the old like computer RPGs. But you can play this 4 players at the same time, which sounds awesome to me. I think I need to bring this to Mo GameCon next year, and we can get some 4-player action going and some RPG stuff. But I haven't played this a whole lot because it seems like it would be more fun to play multiplayer than solo. So, like I said, I usually test the games out when I first get them to make sure they work, and then they just end up sitting on a shelf. But it was developed by Interplay, who ended up releasing stuff later on their own instead of having Acclaim of all companies release it for them. But love RPGs, love dungeon crawling type games, so absolutely had to have this. Next stack. Oh, shit, I almost knocked that over. Ooh, that would have been bad. Going into the T's, we've got the OG Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Everyone's talking about the Cowabunga collection, which I do own. Spoiler alert. This was the one that everybody loved to hate back in the day, and people still hate on it a lot. It's very difficult. There are a lot of control issues. I think there's a little bit of lag when it comes to inputting your controls, like when you're playing. Some things are vague. The game is like very difficult at times. There's some cheeses you can do, like the whole thing if you're playing as Donatello. I think it's when you're fighting Bebop, the Rhino. You can jump on top of this like block that's over his head and just stand there and just hit him over the head with your stick instead of actually having to deal with him on the ground. There's a bunch of things like that you can do, but it's just this constant stream of enemies. They respawn all the time. There's these freaking ridiculous jumps you have to do, and it's just hard as hell. Music is fantastic. The graphics are great. The music is fantastic, and it's just like the controls and the difficulty are my issues with it. I will beat this game eventually. Everyone complains about the underwater level when you're swimming in the dam, and that's kind of like the same situation with Battletoads, where everyone complains about the turbo tunnel. And I never really had a problem with the turbo tunnel. I never really had a problem with those underwater levels. There was a couple times where I'd like get sloppy, but like I never was like pulling my hair out going like, oh my God, this is so unfair. Like a lot of my friends were. Now we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. This is a port of, obviously, the arcade game, which I just beat on the Cowabunga collection over the weekend. And it's a pretty decent port, I will say. I actually like this better than the arcade. The arcade is unfair. I can now talk about it because I've actually recently played the arcade game to completion. That game is incredibly unfair. There are so many times where I was just getting juggled by a bunch of enemies to the point where they were just taking life after life after life away from me because I could not get out of the combo that they had me in. It was just like mousers and a couple of enemies that throw, I think the boomerang ones, every time they would just get me in a corner and I could not get out. But I don't remember that happening very often in the home port. They kind of had to simplify it a little bit and lessen the difficulty because now it's not a quarter muncher anymore. Now you actually got to play this at home. Also having unlimited continues on the arcade version was great. Here you don't. But fantastic game, great music and graphics. I totally forgot how much Pizza Hut stuff is going on in this game. It's even on the front. Cowabunga, get a free pizza from Pizza Hut. No. I don't own the third one, which is sad. But I can play it on the Cowabunga collection if I really want to. Next up, we have Terminator 2 Judgment Day. The better of the Terminator 2 home console ports or versions that are available on the home consoles. The Super Nintendo / Genesis one is, I think, absolute trash. This one is not that bad. It's not great. It's still kind of stupid and difficult at times, but it's not like impossible. Like the Super Nintendo and the Genesis one is just designed so poorly. This one's actually playable as far as I'm concerned. And the music's pretty good too. The music's actually kind of awesome. So when it came to a console version, this was the one I would go to. I picked this up at the Midwest Gaming Classic in 2019, I think it was. And the thing that really sucked out of all the games that I bought that year, this is the only one that didn't work. So I brought it home, could not get it to load at all on my Retro Freak or on my actual NES. And I opened it up and it looked like it had been not rotten, but like, rusted or something. And I didn't have any brass or any stuff like that to clean it. So The game itself was pretty cheap, so I just bought a new copy, just the cartridge alone off of eBay, and finished it off myself. I recompleted it. So I'm not sad that I have this in my collection. It's actually not a bad game. It's not great, like I said, but it's certainly not diarrhea like the Super Nintendo and Genesis one is. And this camera is making me mad. And then we have one of the most common games out there. We got Tetris. Everybody loves Tetris. Everybody loved Tetris back in the day. Everyone had to have a copy of Tetris. Everyone has a copy of Tetris in their collection, I'm pretty sure. And it's a real simple game, just dropping blocks in different formations and trying to create lines of solid blocks at the bottom of the screen. Once you do, they get cleared. You get points. Keep on doing it faster and faster. That's all that is to it. What's up, Mondane? Yeah, everyone has a copy of this game in their collection somewhere, I'm sure. Yeah, I just had to have it for the NES. I don't know if I actually had that back in the day. I had it for the Game Boy, obviously. It came with the Game Boy. Picked this up at the exchange near me. I walked in there and they have like a case right when you walk in of like the things you need to pay attention to that are usually higher priced. But for some reason, this was in that case and they were charging like $5 for it or something. It's the Three Stooges. I never played this one back in the day, but it's a bunch of mini games. You play as, I think, one of the Three Stooges at a time, and you're doing stupid shit like here you're playing as Curly, and you have to like grab these clams that are like spitting at you from this bowl of soup. You got to throw pies here. I don't know what the fuck this one is right here, but whatever. It's just like you're trying to save an orphanage, so you're trying to get money together to pay off the debt that they owe or something like that. Not a great game. It's a port of a PC game, not the greatest. But because it was so cheap, I was like, I don't care. Licensed game, gotta have it. Did they actually think that little kids will want to play a game based on the Three Stooges? Because as far as I know, that showed up pretty quickly at my local KB Toys in the clearance section compared to like when it came out. It was, I want to say within like 3 or 4 months, it was already in the clearance section. Like, I don't think that sold like at all. I think it's a CinemaWare game too. Because I remember this came out for the PC, like the computers of the time, and I remember it was pretty popular on the computer. Whatever. Time Lord. This was released by Milton Bradley, but it was developed by Rare, which is why I have it. And it's not the greatest. I have not played this at length, but it's like a side-scrolling platformer / run and gun where you're like going to different time periods and stuff. I remember when I was trying it out after I got my copy to make sure that it worked, and the controls are kind of weird. And that's probably one of the reasons why I have not gone back and played through it like I should have. You know, if it's a Rare game, I got to do it. But that artwork on the front, though, is badass. Gotta say. And it's obviously a Rare game. It has to be in my collection. Always wanted this back in the day, but I didn't want to buy it because it was always kind of pricey, grinding the different classes in Fireteam. Oh, shit! Yeah, my buddy Rob that I work with was playing it the other night, and I brought it up to him at work yesterday. And I was like, dude, if you want to play, just let me know. And we'll, I beat it the other day, so, we can make it happen. He's just like, oh, I'll think about it. But yeah, this game was always kind of pricey. It never went on clearance, so I never picked it up. And that's Tiny Toon Adventures. I was watching a video by John Riggs, and he brought this up for some reason. And I was like, oh, yeah, I keep on forgetting to look for that game. So I went and got a copy real cheap off of eBay, like the day that I saw that video. And it's a side-scrolling platformer. As usual, you play as a bunch of the different Tiny Toon characters. You play as Buster, and I think that's the only character whose name I can remember. Dizzy Devil, Plucky the Duck. And it's kind of like, it reminds me, when I was playing it to make sure that it worked, it reminds me a lot of like Bucky O'Hare, but like really, really cutesy, and it is not difficult at all. So this is like the kiddie version of Bucky O'Hare. And it's great. I love it. The graphics are great. The music is catchy. It's fun. It's a fun platformer. This is like a lightning rod of hate. People seem to misunderstand me when I say, yes, this next game is garbage, but I have memories of this game. And like, nostalgia is powerful, people. So I had to have this in my collection. I know it's garbage. It does suck, but I played this so much as a kid. I had to have it, and that's Total Recall. It's a piece of shit. The game has like little to nothing to do with the movie. I have a sneaking suspicion that this was some unrelated game, and I don't know if it was Acclaim that made this. It says, I think Acclaim just distributed it. It doesn't say who developed it. The type is too small. I can't make it out. But I have a feeling it was an unrelated game, and they just changed a few things to make it work as a Total Recall game. There's a glory hole scene where you're walking past like this wall with little holes, and like there's their fists that are really coming out to punch you. But I mean, the uninitiated, they look like dicks. The shooting is not precise. The punching, like you're usually punching like little people that go under your fist when you punch, and it's not fair. The jumping sucks. The controls just suck in general. The thing that happens, like when you're in your apartment and Sharon Stone is shooting at you, and there's like a glitch sometimes that'll happen where you're not able to leave the room. And it happened to me a couple times when I was a kid. It's not the greatest game ever, but licensed game for starters. And number two, like I said, I rented this all the time as a kid because the video store that was right around the corner from our house, like when we got our NES, didn't have a lot of stuff to choose from. They had just opened up this brand new video store, and they were focusing more on the movie side of things and less on the game side of things. So they only had like 10 or so games to choose from when they first opened. And this was the one that was always in because it sucks. So I ended up running this all the time. And yeah, even back in the day, I was like, this is not good. I'm not having fun playing this. But you keep on playing the games you have available to you back in the day because, I did not have a job. So spending the $1.50 to rent this was not that big of a deal. But I have a fondness for it as an adult because of all the time I spent playing it as a kid. But I know it is doo-doo. I know it. Don't give me shit anymore. Then we got Totally Rad. I don't believe I ever played this as a kid. I always liked the name. I always liked the cover, but I never got around to playing this. I knew about it from magazines and stuff, and it looked kind of cool, but I just never ended up getting it. And it's a side-scrolling platformer pseudo run and gun where you play as this kid that he's taking on aliens. You get this power where you punch and you can shoot like a laser beam out of your hand. And it's just breezy fun. I mean, I found this at Midwest Gaming Classic, I think in 2018, and it was relatively inexpensive compared to what it was going for online, so I picked it up. And I have a good time with it. And I remember I brought it up to Back in the Day Gamer when I got it. And he was just like, I absolutely love that game. That game is so much fun. Really underrated. And I agree. It's pretty decent. I need to play through it. It's all about that early 90s tood, bruh. Town and Country Surf Designs or TNC Surf Designs. My buddy Gary had this when we were kids, and I didn't really like it, but it was just one of those games you would throw in when you just wanted to play something without any like storyline or, didn't really require a whole lot of skill. It's a bunch of like mini games, and there's like a skateboarding one, there's a surfing one. I think that's it. Skateboarding and surfing. Not much to it. One of LJN's lesser releases, I will say, but there's a sequel to this. This was popular enough that it got a sequel. I'm not sure if I want it. But we played this like whenever there was nothing else to do, like when we were bored. Whatever. So I found a dirt cheap copy of that online, so I picked it up. And then I was bringing it up in earlier streams for the NES that like when it comes to like the older Capcom releases, when I get them complete in box, I get really lucky about the punch tabs on the back. That I always get them unpunched completely. But I picked this up at the very first Midwest Gaming Classic I ever went to in 2015, I think it was. Or 2015. Trojan. We had this when I was a kid. It was one of those games I got on clearance at, was it KB Toys? And it's a difficult game. I think it's a port of an arcade game. It's a side-scrolling platformer / beat 'em up. You have like a sword. And it's really, really difficult. It's like one of the early NES games, and it's like not designed all that great. But once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad, because I remember when I first got my copy of this, I was like, I'm not enjoying this like at all, but I spent $10 on it. You got to play it. And I just kept on playing. And then one weekend, it just like, I remember it just like clicked. And all of a sudden I was like breezing through it until I got like to the end. And it's kind of fun. I need to get in that groove again and play through this. I never actually beat it back in the day, but like I said, I got pretty close. Next up is Ultima Exodus. My dad loved the Ultima series. So while me and my brother would be playing the Atari 2600 on the main TV in our basement in our family room, my dad would be sitting at his desk in the corner playing Ultima on his Atari computer. And he played every single one of them up until I think the Black Gate. Like when all of a sudden he needed to buy like an IBM PC in order to start playing these. And I never really got into Ultima on the PC, but I remember watching him do it all the time. Like I just remember him like taking all these, he drawing out all these maps on graph paper and taking all these notes and writing everything down. And I was like, it's kind of cool that the game is like that in depth that you actually have to take notes on it. I hope I can play a game like that in the future and actually have fun, RPGs. But yeah, this looks a hell of a lot better than the old PC versions or Atari computer versions my dad had. That's a big step up. It looks kind of Dragon Quest-esque. I think there's another Ultima game on the NES that I need to get. This is Ultima Exodus, I do believe, is part 3. I think the fourth one is Quest for the Avatar, and that's on the Master System. I don't think we got that one over here. I have to look into it. There's another one on the NES I need to get. But this is like nostalgia for like watching my dad play these RPGs all the time. One of the first games you beat was Trojan? It's a fun game. It just takes a little while to get into it. This game I never wanted back in the day because I thought the cover and the name were stupid. So I never picked it up. But I remember always seeing it at the Funko Land that I would go to. And that is Vice Project Doom. If I remember correctly, this was a late NES game. Because I remember I didn't really go to the Funko Lands until the Super Nintendo came out. So that was probably 1991. And that was, I think, when this came out. Like I said, this was a very late release. And I just remember seeing this cover and going like, that's stupid. Why does it look like the Cobra Kai coach, from the Karate Kid? And the name I thought was stupid, too. I never played it. And it turns out I'm an idiot. The game has like 3 different play styles. It has side-scrolling run-and-gun segments that are kind of platforming also. You have racing segments that are like vertically scrolling. And then you have like light gun style sections where you don't need a light gun. You can actually use the controller. And it's like Ninja Gaiden where it has like the storyline and everything with the cutscenes. And it is super freaking fun. Sometimes the cover deceives you because I just thought this looked hokey as all hell. But turns out it's an awesome game. And I ended up getting this off of eBay when I got back into collecting, and I was super thrilled about it. And I think Jason got that. Jason from Corpse Flood got that in his backlog roulette when we first started up the podcast together. That was I think the first game he got. Next up is an arcade port from Tengen that I actually really, really like, and that is Vindicators. This is a vertically scrolling tank game where you're playing as I think you can play 2-player simultaneously. If I remember correctly. Yeah, I think you can play 2 players simultaneously. Yeah, it's like combat on the Atari 2600, but it actually scrolls. And you got co-op, and it's not the greatest thing ever, but I remember I always had fun playing this back when I was a kid. And this is, I do believe, the strange-ass Tengen cart. Yep, the weird black Tengen carts, which I love. I think that's the coolest looking cart we got on the NES, were the Tengen carts. It's just a shame that Nintendo were being dicks to them by saying, if Toys R Us continues to sell those Tengen games, we won't sell our games to you to sell anymore. So you're not going to have any NES games on your shelves anymore. Whatever. Like I said, I haven't had anything to eat today, so I'm very lightheaded and borderline delirious. Probably getting a sugar high from this tea because it's the only thing with calories I've had today. Next up is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. This is another LJN game developed by Rare. Why I had to have it. But we got this back when I was a kid. And it was one of those LJN games that makes you say this is why LJN sucks. This game is not that good. It's cryptic. It controls like ass. There's a weird delay to the things you do. Some of the things don't make sense. The ending fight with Judge Doom is the worst. It takes forever. But if you're a fan of Roger Rabbit, it's like okay, and it has like the signature graphics from like a Rare game, and the music does definitely feel like David Wise. But the game is just not developed very well. I think this was one of those games like Beetlejuice where like 3 months before the movie was due to come out, they were like given the assignment to make this game, and they just pumped something out real quick, and it's just not the greatest. The graphics I don't think are very good. Like I said, the controls are the worst part of it. But licensed game, gotta have it. But this is a great licensed game from Capcom, and that's Willow. I absolutely love the movie. Absolutely. Well off, good. Out of the word. And this is an action RPG, which blew my mind. There was an arcade game of Willow that I had played, which is like a side-scrolling platformer shoot 'em up, where you played as Willow and you were like firing the acorns that he uses to cast spells in the movie, but they were like flaming acorns, and that was how you attack things. But this one is a top-down Legend of Zelda-esque action RPG, and it's super freaking fun. I was watching, what's his name? The Renaissance stream this not too long ago, and he was just like, wow, this game, who'd have thunk it? Back in the day gamer, I know, absolutely loves this one. It is super great. Music is catchy. The gameplay is fun. Doesn't have that difficult of a learning curve, but like the way you attack is reminiscent of, I'm trying to think, latest Legend of Zelda, because it's top down and you just like slash your sword out in front of you. I keep on wanting to say it's like Ys, but no, Ys is like you run into things, so it's not a very good comparison. Like I said, my brain ain't working that well right now. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Never had that back in the day. I probably should have bought it. I would have loved the crap out of it back then. Next up is Wizardry Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord. Here's another one of those into-the-screen dungeon crawl RPGs, kind of like Swords and Serpents, but this one is a solo game. Very PC-like, because this is based off an old PC game. Got this at, what was it called? Disc Recyclery, I think it was called. There was one by my local half-price books that I used to go to. And they had this in their case where they would put like some of the more prominent items they had in stock. But they're charging like $20 for it. And I was like, I'll take it, I don't think I was buying many things that day. I think that's the reason I bought it, was because it was cheap and it was like the only thing that I wanted that was in the store. But it has like a huge-ass manual. Obviously, this probably does have a huge learning curve. I'm playing a PC game on the NES. But this manual is freaking trashed. And it does not want to go inside this damn case. Get your ass in there. Lonnie, get your ass away from there. I need to play that. I need to play it. Now we have Wizards and Warriors. This was one of the games that my buddy Gary had. Rare developed, had to have it in the collection on that fact alone. But my buddy Gary had this, and I watched him play through it, and I was like, things are happening so fast. I don't understand how does this game play? How does this work? And it's a side-scrolling platformer. I think that's basically all the thing, like a fantasy platformer. You play as this like knight, and he has like a sword, but like the range of it is so short. You basically attack things by jumping into them, because actually trying to like come after them with your sword, you never will hit them for some reason. Like the hitbox for the enemies is so wonky that your sword will never hit them. But if you jump into them, you kill them. Eventually, you can upgrade your weapons. I think you get like a lance or something at some point, and you get some spells. But it's a lot of verticality in the game, which I thought was kind of neat. And it's cool once you get the hang of it, but at the same time, it's also very overly complicated and kind of, weird control-wise. And a little vague at times, too. But I have nostalgia for it. I always enjoyed it. I do enjoy Iron Sword quite a bit, despite the Fabio cover. Oh, my mom liked the cover a lot. And then you have the third game in the series, Wizards and Warriors 3, Kuros Visions of Power. This is not developed by Rare for some reason, but It looks and plays just like it were, which is why I was confused about this when I first got it. I was playing, I was like, this feels like the original games, but it wasn't developed by Rare at all. And it's more of the same, but this one's more of an adventure type game. There's more to do. It's got a little bit of a light RPG touches and stuff. You're talking to people. But if you like the Wizards and Warriors games, you're going to like this. I picked that one up at the Midwest Gaming Classic, I think in 2018. This one is another one my buddy Gary had, and I watched him play through it in one sitting. And I didn't think it was the greatest thing ever because I was like, wow, it's a ripoff of Shinobi. It's Wrath of the Black Manta. Like I said, I watched him beat this in one sitting, and it's very reminiscent of the Shinobi arcade game. But when you get into a boss fight, everything blows up, like everything gets big, and it's really complicated. But when I got around to playing a copy, because I got this on clearance at KB Toys back in the day, and when I started playing it, I was like, I do not like these controls at all. It is kind of crappy. I don't know how Gary did it and didn't complain and die 5 million times, because that's exactly what happened to me when I was playing it. But I have nostalgia for it, so I had to have a copy of it in my collection. And it was dirt cheap when I got it. So like, I got all these games when there were next to nothing on eBay before COVID jacked everything up. Got this off of a guy on Facebook. He sold me a bunch of stuff, including, I think, my copy of Metroid and one of the Mega Man games. I think it might have been Mega Man 2 and 3. But Worm, Journey to the Center of the Earth. I didn't know a whole lot about this game, but I was at the point in my collecting when I got this that I was just like, I want everything, even if I hadn't played it. And it's I don't know how to describe it. You play as like this drill tank. It's kind of like Dig Dug, I guess, but there's like shoot 'em up stuff going on. It's weird. You can see they're mostly focused on the anime aspects of the story. You can kind of see one of the scenes down here where you have your little drill tank thing. It was okay. What I played of it to make sure it worked was all right, but I never really put a whole lot of time into it, so I really can't describe it very much because that was probably back in 2014 when I last played it. And then this was one of the games I always wanted back in the day because I played this a lot in the arcade. Never had a copy of it back in the day, but when I bought it now as an adult, I was like, oh, made a mistake. And we're talking Xenophobe. I used to play this all the time because the cover art and the arcade artwork looked like Alien. It was like Aliens or something like that. And what it was like a co-op game. The screen was split into two. You can kind of see it right here. The screen is split into two. One player's on the top, and the other player's on the bottom. You can play co-op. You can play against each other if you want. But you go to like a space station. You have to clear it out of these aliens. They're these little shelled aliens that are supposed to be like face huggers. And then there's the big-ass aliens that are supposed to be like the chest bursters all grown up. And once you clear the place out, an alarm goes off, like there's a bomb going that's going to destroy the place. You need to get out of there and go to the next station. Only thing is, on home consoles, this does not translate very well. This is not fun. It is slow as shit. Yeah, the controls are terrible. So I got this pretty cheap off of eBay, and if I had paid any more for it, I might have actually been like legit angry, but I think I paid like $10-12 for it, so I couldn't complain. But it's not good. It's not good. I expected more from Sunsoft because I remember the arcade game being pretty fun, but this home port, not so much. It's also available on the Lynx, and I kind of think I need to get a copy of that just so I can experience it for myself and see how that works. Then we got Zexus, which is a shmup. It is a horizontally scrolling shmup. I bought this at my local store. People Play Games when they were still open. Really cheap, and I think it's the reason I bought it. I hadn't played this back in the day, but I know a lot of people nowadays have been playing it. I know, was it EC Myers vids? You know, Eugene, I think he streamed this. I think Captain Algebra streamed this. There was like a high score challenge or something involving this game for a little while, but Hudson Soft, and you know me and Hudson Soft, I was like, if I saw that it had the Hudson name on it, I was like, yes, I'll pick that one up. Can't really talk much about this, but it's Yoshi's Cookie, one of the myriad of Tetris clones out there. Is that this one involves cookies. You're trying to match up the cookies. Yay. I got this in a lot. I don't remember exactly what game I got in the lot with this, but the only reason this is in my collection is because it came with another game that I really wanted, and I do not for the life of me remember what that is. Honestly, it might have been Ultima. I think it might have been Ultima. Here's another shmup, Xanic. I picked this up at my local store. You can still see the label on it. I picked this up at People Play Games when they were still around. And this is a vertically scrolling shmup, and I do believe this is a port. I think this is an arcade game, I think. Can't be positive. But it's a generic vertically scrolling shmup. There's really nothing much to say about it. I haven't spent a whole lot of time playing it. Ooh, been streaming for 1 hour and 10 minutes? Oh, shit. Now we've got Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. Absolutely had to have this in my collection. Got this. I picked up the original Legend of Zelda off of eBay. I think I paid like $70 for it or something like that because it came with everything. But this I got at my local store. This I got at People Play Games, like my old retro store, for like $40, and it has everything in it. And I could not believe that they were charging so little for this compared to what the original was going for. And then I remembered, oh yeah, all the hate. Because, like I brought up with Castlevania 2, I should have brought it up when I was talking about Super Mario Brothers 2. The thing I liked about the NES days was you would get a sequel to like a really popular established franchise. Like, let's say you got Super Mario Brothers, you got Castlevania, you got Legend of Zelda. And then when the sequel comes out, it goes in a completely different direction. Castlevania 2 looked like the original Castlevania. It didn't play like it. Everything about it was adventure-y and not just a side-scrolling beat-em-up. But it was like almost like an RPG. And people were like, the game is garbage. Well, yeah, it had some problems, but it's still super fun. The music is 10 times better in the sequel than it is in the original. Mario Brothers 2 is completely different from the original Mario Brothers, which is what I talked about earlier. And then you got Link, or Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, which is a straight-up like action RPG instead of an adventure game like the original. And this one has like an overworld like a real RPG does. And it also has like the side-scrolling stages from a beat-em-up, but you get experience for everything you kill. You'll see like a little number pop up when you kill something. And that's the experience. And you need to level up Link. You can level up his health and his magic abilities. And it is difficult, but you do get different moves and stuff like that. You change the color of your outfit depending on the way you develop your character. And it's super fun. I like this one a lot. I liked the fact that it wasn't just a rehash of the first game. It did something completely different. And apparently that pisses people off when they don't get the same thing that they had before. But I'm pretty sure that if it was a complete rehash of the original game, they would have complained that nothing new was done to it. I don't understand the way some people think. But whatever. I absolutely love this game. I actually think it's better than the original. So there's me. I am error, maybe. I don't know. But I absolutely love it because it did not rehash the original game. And then the last game in box like this that I have to talk about today is Zoda's Revenge Star Tropics 2. I absolutely love Star Tropics. I talked about it earlier in this video. I have not spent a whole lot of time playing the sequel because this came out after I got rid of my NES. It was another one of those late NES games. And I remember reading what I read about this is this one doesn't really have an overworld anymore. This is just the dungeon type stuff where you're hopping around. But it doesn't look like you're hopping anymore. It looks like you're actually walking around using your yo-yo as a weapon. Yeah, wind your way through more than a dozen action-packed stages in 8 settings. And it has a built-in save. Didn't the original have that too? But I need to sit down and play. I think I want to, like, once I get my Poly Mega, I want to stream the original Star Tropics and me playing this for the first time. But it looks cool. But me loving the original Star Tropics, I absolutely had to have that in the collection. And it's a game in the Z's, and there aren't that many, but I actually have 3. Ooh. But one game I wanted to talk about is a repro that I got off of... Is the name of the company on here? This I got from Fishy Face. So I was talking about Fishy Face Games. I got... I only think it's one repro from them for the NES. I don't remember what the name of it is. I talked about it in one of the other streams. I think it was earlier on I think maybe in the first one. I don't remember which game it was though. But whatever. Fishy Face Games is like what I would consider the replacement for Time Walk Games when it comes to reproductions. Like they do super high quality stuff. Time Walk Games is like that. And Fishy Face, I think, has replaced them as the high-tier repro joint. Their stuff is a little bit pricey. This was pricey. But like a year, it was like 2 or 3 years ago. There was a ROM unearthed of SimCity for the NES that plays just like the Super Nintendo version of SimCity. And I guess it was supposed to come out around the same time as the Super Nintendo one on the NES, or on the NES. It was supposed to be released at the same time as the Super Nintendo one, but it got canceled. But it was finished, and somebody found the ROM, dumped it online, and of course, Fishy Face is good. Yeah, they do have that. I actually own the legit copy of Bahamut Lagoon, but I have one for the. I know I have one for the NES. I just wish I could remember what it was. Shit. I don't want to get up and go over there and look. Oh, man, it's going to drive me crazy trying to remember which game it is, too. Shit. Whatever, not important. So they make real high-quality stuff. The cartridges are great. They come with a lot of extra stuff. The box is great. The manuals are full color. And they usually come with a stand of some kind. That was the other thing. I have one up here for the Game Boy Color, too. Oh, it wasn't Layla. Was it Layla? It was Layla. No, it wasn't Layla. Was it Layla? No, it was Just Breed. Just Breed was the one that I got from Fishy Face Games. That came with a stand, so you can actually display the cartridge outside of the box if you wanted to, and I don't want to do it. Do it! Yeah, it's right. Shit. Yeah. Just Breed. Fishy Face. Yeah, this has like a bunch of shit in it. Fantastic. Still need to play the damn game. But when this SimCity ROM got dumped, Fishy Face picked it up and made like this super edition of it, like this ultimate edition thing. They call it the Megalopolis edition. It was expensive, but I absolutely love SimCity on the Super Nintendo. Like, that was one of those games that I never thought I would like. I bought it because it was on sale at the Kmart I worked at, where I got my Super Nintendo. I wanted a new game. It was the only one they had in stock that I didn't already own, or I didn't already own. I can't talk. I haven't had anything to eat today, guys. I didn't already own it, so I picked it up, and I ended up playing it probably the most out of all of the Super Nintendo games I had for the first year or two of having a Super Nintendo. So playing it on the NES it sounded awesome to me, and I was willing to pay what they were asking. I'm not going to repeat what they cost, because honestly I can't really remember. I just remember it was a lot. But I got this SimCity Megalopolis edition from Fishy Face Games. You can see the little logo there on that little tab. And this thing was, like I said, not cheap, but it comes with a lot of awesome stuff. So it opens up. Come on, you can do it. It's got a padded box. And that's the inside. That is all cardboard that has been etched to look like a city. There are levels to it, like layers to it. It is like hard. It's not like the cardboard that this box is made out of. This is like this hard cardboard, and it is absolutely beautiful to look at. I mean, that is so flippin' cool. And then you got the game. Okay, so it has this tab that you pull up, and it pulls the cardboard back out, and that makes it easier for you to pull the game out. Bloop. But closer look at the frame that it comes inside. But there's things underneath it too. There is a stand so you can display the cartridge if you want to, that was like 3D printed, and it looks like a subway map, like the L map that you have in Chicago kind of thing for like public transit. And it comes with these stands that you can put in there that are like a cityscape. You stand these up inside of here, and the cartridge stands or you insert these into the stand here. Let's see if I can do it real quick. I don't want to break them though. That's the problem. And you got two different kinds. You got ones that are blue and ones that are black. Depends on, I guess, which ones you want to use. So the little stands attach in there. I didn't put them in all the way, but you can see like they look like a cityscape. And then the cartridge slips inside that, and this holds it up so you can display it out in public if you want, which I don't want to do. So we'll put those back. Yeah, there's a blue set and there's a black set of those stands. But this thing itself is awesome. And then you got the game, which comes in this matte finish box. Open it up. And the reason why they want you to display the game out in the open is because, you ready for this? The game has been etched with like a cityscape on it too. This is like raised up plastic on the cartridge. It is, and it's even on the label. It is absolutely nuts. Even the way like Sim City stretches from the label across the cartridge, it is absolutely crazy. I thought this was the coolest freaking thing I've ever seen. Nope, I only have the one Star Ocean. And it comes with a very large manual that is vertical instead of horizontal, completely in color. But the game plays just like the Super Nintendo one. It's just graphically, it's been downgraded. So it's not as visually impressive, but like everything about this is just rad as hell. And I was not going to pass it up. The only thing is the box, because it's like this certain cardboard stock they used, you can see like it's already starting to like shred from being folded. So that's the only quality issue I have with this. But every other game I bought from them is fantastic. Or of fantastic quality. So, we'll put this back. Get your ass out of there. There we go. So, the Megalopolis edition of SimCity was not cheap, but I absolutely had to have it. And I played it on... it does not work on my Retro Freak. A lot of these, like, after like games that weren't officially released for the NES type of reproductions don't work on my Retro Freak, but they work on the regular Nintendo like they're supposed to, which is cool. So there's that. All right, so that's all for the games, but like I said, there's other things I was going to show off in this, and that is the actual hardware that I should have been showing off for these other videos, or these other streams. So we'll move backwards. So the first stream that I did was all about the Atari 2600 and like the first generation of consoles. So I don't own an Atari 2600 at all. If I did, I'd have no way to play it because I don't have a CRT. Trying to play things through RF on a 4K television, I don't think that's going to work very well. But I do have the Retron 77. This is the Hyperkin clone console for the Atari 2600. It comes with a joystick that is very reminiscent of the ones you used to get back in the day, although you can kind of see on the bottom here, the plastic isn't completely flat. It actually kind of like bevels down to make it easier to hold in your hand and more comfortable when you're laying your hand on it. And it has two buttons instead of the one. And it has a couple of different modes. It has two controller ports on here. There's your power button in the middle, the switch, and then these other buttons over here. What is it? Save. What is it? Save. Shit. Oh, I can take it out and look. Come on. Get out of there. I don't have this on my shelf right now because I don't need 500 consoles plugged into my entertainment system. Yeah, that's what it looks like. It's actually very small, almost as wide as like a cartridge for the Atari 2600. But the buttons on the front here are save, load, reset, and mode, which is kind of like the select button that you would have on the Atari 2600. But there's buttons on the back. One of them is to change the color mode. One of them is to change the aspect ratio. Like you can go color, black and white. And the other one is fry. And there was this thing you could do. I never knew about it back in the day when I was a kid that you can do with the Atari 2600 games is like you could like switch move the switch for the on and off, I guess, like halfway sometimes, and you could glitch the game out, and it'll do weird things. And you could actually intentionally do that with this console, which is pretty awesome. Never actually tried to because I don't know what games work with it. I think Adventure is one of them, if I remember correctly. But as an HD option to play Atari 2600 games on your television, I absolutely had to have this. And to go along with it is this Ranger controller that is set up like a Nintendo controller. I'm not going to take it out because this thing is a bitch to get out and put back. It's set up like a Nintendo controller, but the D-pad is actually like a thumbstick, kind of like the joystick, and it has the one button. But on the side up here, you have a roller, so it works as a paddle controller, which is exactly what I needed to play like Breakout games or Kaboom or something like that. Demons to Diamonds that I just got recently. So I absolutely had to have that because when I first got the Retron 77, the console did not recognize my paddle controllers. And I think it needed an update to be able to use them, but it wasn't available at that point in time because I got it pretty early on. So it's kind of cool that they recognized that and put this out, so I might need to buy another one of these. But when it comes to playing NES stuff, we'll start off with the Famicom. So I do own a bunch of Famicom and Famicom Disk System games. Yeah, I know there's two different kinds. I just like this one. Before I had the Retro Freak to play my Famicom games on, I had the Sharp Twin Famicom. And this was the first huge purchase that I made when I got back into collecting back in the day. So I'd gotten a tax return. This is probably 2014. I got a tax return, and I had just learned about the Famicom Disk System. I never knew about it back in the day. I knew about the Famicom. I just never knew that games came on discs until I got back into collecting in the early 2010s. And I heard about it, and I think it was a video by, CGR, Classic Game Room, Mark. He did a review of this console, and I was like, Disk System what? What is this I hear now? What? And I looked into it, and I was like, holy crap, I did not know anything about this. How did I not know this? Well, because we never got this in the U.S. Are you crazy? So I went online, and I found a Famicom Disk System from Japan that had been, like, I guess the capacitors in here kind of crappy too, kind of like in a Turbo Duo and stuff like that. And the rubber band that runs the disk drive is known to, well, obviously it'll wear out because it's made out of rubber. The guy had replaced the capacitors and the rubber band in here. So everything worked fine. And that's when I really got heavily into getting Disk System games. But the cool thing about this is it not only plays Famicom games and the Disk System stuff up front, but like, I guess Nintendo kind of realized that being a top loader, you can get dust inside the console very easily. So in order to make it so that this does not open, it has a lock. And now it'll open. You flip that, and now it's locked, so nothing can get inside, which is pretty cool. And then it also has a button on the front here to eject the cartridge, so you're not like trying to yank it out like a Super Nintendo game. The only thing I don't like about this is the fact that the controllers are hardwired into the console. Like they are in there. Like there is no unplugging them. They are part of it. And the cables are like 3 feet long. So whenever I want to play this, I have to like hook it up. Or I used to hook it up like to the my old TV used to have like the yellow, white, and red hookup on it, the plugs. I would hook it up, pull it forward, and leave this on my coffee table, and then have to lean forward just so I can hold the controllers. But the cool thing about these controllers are not only they're just slightly smaller than a standard NES controller, but Player 2's controller has a microphone up here. You can see it built into where it says number 2. There's a microphone, and then there is a control for that microphone. There's a slider up here for the volume. And you use that in Legend of Zelda. They took that part out of our game when we got it in the U.S. In Legend of Zelda, when you have the Pole's voice characters that look like they have the big ears, if you screech or like yell into the controller, into the microphone, it deafens them and stuns them, and then you can go up and attack them. Otherwise, they'll just come running after you, which is kind of cool, but they took it out of the U.S. version because we didn't have a microphone in our controllers. But when it comes to the NES over in the U.S., Here's the one I've been using. One of the classic toaster ones. This is not the one I had back in the day. This actually belonged to my ex-girlfriend. When I got back into collecting in 2013, I think it was like for Christmas that year. She was like, "Hey, I went back to visit my parents, and like I went through all my old stuff in the attic, and I found my old NES. And since nobody's using it, and you need an NES to play these games that you're buying, just take it." So she gave this to me for free, and it's the one I'm still using, and it works perfectly fine. I've never had any issues with it. She hadn't played this thing in like 20 years. And it was sitting up in her parents' attic gathering dust. I plug it in and it booted up on the first try. The first game I played on this was a Batman. Came with 2 controllers and all the hookups. But I ended up on my own purchasing an NES Advantage. We had one of these when I was a kid. Only problem was my brother, who is not that much of a gamer, had a very bad temper when it came to certain games named Track and Field. I think it was Track and Field 2 he was playing. And he was using this controller, the one that we did get. These were kind of expensive back in the day. These were like $100 or something. And he was playing Track and Field 2, and he got so frustrated at the game, he threw this at the wall and broke the controller. And my parents were like, "Well, we're not buying you another one, so deal with it." And I remember my dad was really mad because, like I said, these were not cheap. But I got this off of one of my Facebook friends, and it's super awesome. It still has a tight joystick. The buttons are all great. Everything still clicks. Yeah, it's great. The only thing is some of the buttons are starting to yellow. The controller itself still looks good, but a couple of the buttons are starting to change color. But it's not a big deal. But now I have not hooked up that NES in years, probably since 2015. I used to have everything hooked up in my living room. And after a while, I was like, this looks like the Angry Video Game Nerd's basement. There is just cables everywhere. I'm probably going to blow a circuit at one point, maybe start a fire because I had like 13 consoles plugged in at once. No, I need to clean this thing up. And I did that by purchasing a Retro Freak. And this is a Japanese clone console that is like a multi-purpose one. It plays multiple consoles. It plays Famicom, Super Nintendo, Super Famicom, Mega Drive, Genesis, TurboGrafx 16 cards, PC Engine cards, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, and Game Boy Color. And you can get an adapter so you can play NES games on this because the pins on a Super Nintendo cartridge and a Super Famicom cartridge are exactly the same. The cartridges are just shaped a little bit differently, so they're not able to be played on the other console. You cannot play a Super Famicom game on a Super Nintendo and vice versa, the way the cartridges are formed. But this is open enough so you can plug both of them in. Same with the Genesis and Mega Drive, they're the same. But NES and Famicom cartridges are designed completely differently, so you need to buy an adapter to play your NES games on this, but they work perfectly fine, and that's exactly what I do. And it comes with a plug port here that has one port for every console that this thing plays. So it has an NES port, a Super Nintendo port, a Genesis port, this also plays Super Graphics games. It has a Super Graphics port and a TurboGrafx port. And this thing is fantastic. I bought this, I think, in 2015, and I've been using it ever since. Every once in a while I had a problem with an update that what is it? Not Retro Freak. Cyber Gadget. Everything on their website's in Japanese. You want to do an update, you got to go to this Japanese website and like use Google Translate to figure out what the hell's going on and what you need to download. Sometimes it's like you need to download this file in order to get the update to work, and it's complicated. A couple of times I had problems with the updates, mostly involving this, which is the GG adapter. Or sorry, the GG converter, the gear converter. And what this does is this plugs into the Genesis Mega Drive port and lets you play Sega Master System if you have an adapter, SG-1000 cartridges, Mark III cartridges, and Game Gear cartridges, and the Sega Master System cards. This is awesome. When this came out, you needed to download an update for this to get it to work, and the update for this bricked this. So I remember it was really weird. I plugged this in without getting the update, and it kind of sort of worked for a little while, but certain games wouldn't work on it. And then I found out I was like, oh, I'm supposed to get this update thing that's supposed to make everything compatible. And I updated it, and it made like this just completely stopped working. Nothing would get recognized on it. And no, I take that back. It was letting some Master System stuff work, but all the Game Gear games that I tried to play, it would never recognize a Game Gear game from that point on. So I was having this argument with Play Asia, because I got all of these off of Play Asia. I was like, look, the gear converter thing isn't working right. It's not recognizing any of my Game Gear games. They made me record myself plugging it in and plugging a game in and turning the console on to make sure that I wasn't lying and just trying to get a free gear converter or something. And I got to the point where they finally were like, okay, fine, send it back to us. We'll give you a replacement. And then I went to the website just to see if there was something I needed to do, like a last-ditch type of thing. And I re-downloaded all the updates, reinstalled all the updates, and then this thing started working again. So I think they patched the patch. I think it might have been something that happened to everybody, but I just didn't hear about it. So that's great. Now this works perfectly. And if you don't have a Retro Freak, you can plug this into a regular Genesis and get Master System games to work on it, because this works as a Master System converter. And I played a Game Gear game, I played a Master System game that was a port of a Game Gear game to a Master System cartridge through this on my Sega CDX. And it worked perfectly fine. So if you want to be able to play Master System games and all that kind of stuff through your Genesis, get this. It'll work. And I do believe that is it for this stream. Probably the shortest one I've done, because I kind of breezed through the games. I didn't actually have a whole lot of games compared to the other streams, because it was 2 full shelves I was doing normally, and this was more like 1 shelf and like a third. So that's why I wanted to bring in all the console stuff that I've been neglecting to talk about. And I'm going to start adding those in when I do another console. So next week, I think we're going to go into the Genesis. I can't remember. I can never remember which came out first, the Genesis or the TurboGrafx. Or the Game Boy. Because like 89 was the next time a new console came out. And there's like 3 of them that came out in 89. I'll have to look it up. So next week, we'll have another console to talk about. But I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. T16 came out first. Okay, so it'll be TurboGrafx and Turbo CD stuff. That might be a short stream too, because I don't have so many games. But whatever. We'll see. So come back next Thursday. I had to start a little bit late tonight because work got a little crazy. Like I said, I didn't even get a chance to have anything to eat. I'm going to go and actually eat the first meal of the day right now when I hit the stop button. So, yeah, I'll be back next week, 8 o'clock p.m. Central. Tomorrow I'll have another short out on the channel. Those are actually doing pretty well for me, which is surprising. So check out or keep an eye out for that tomorrow, and then next Thursday, obviously. And I'm trying to do another edited content video. I'm thinking about maybe doing another Diamond in the Rough video, maybe on the NES, or I don't know. I'll have to go through my collection and see. Maybe I'll do Super Nintendo or something like that. I don't know. We'll find out. Maybe I'll join you for a hunt. You still playing right now? Because I'll join you. I got to eat first, though, so give me about a half an hour to actually throw some food down my gullet. So thank you, everybody, for hanging out with me tonight and chatting with me while I was talking about the rest of my NES collection. Very awesome. I will talk to you next week. Chris, the old-ass retro gamer, out. Have a good night, everybody. Stay safe. I will talk to you next time.